On today's episode of Pop History Podcast, after years of saying no singles, a UK band finds a hit. Deaf people can watch TV. It's okay, we can pick on them. They can't hear this. And for those of you in the Portland area, you better watch out, because she's about to blow. Let's kick it!
You're listening to Pop History Podcast, a show which opens a chronological time capsule of our past. If you're a child of the 80s, a pop culture historian, or just a fan of nostalgia, keep tuning in for your weekly lesson of pop history. Now here's your host, Jay Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Danielle, and welcome listeners to another episode where we look at everything that was rad, sad, and meh in March 1980, all while we count down the top 10 Billboard hits of the week of March 15th. Now let's get to the countdown. Debuting at our countdown at number 10 is a band that has already become well established when they brought in new vocalists for their 1979 platinum album. James J.T. Taylor was 13 when he began singing in nightclubs. As he grew older, he became a schoolteacher, but never gave up his passion for music. When Kool and the Gang were without a singer in 1976, they found J.T. and were ready to return to the charts. By the time they released the album Ladies' Night in 1979, they had perfected their funky style and made themselves more mainstream by incorporating pop and light R&B into their sound. This drove the album up the charts, thanks to their first single, the title track, which peaked at number 8, and this one, their second single. Here's Kool and the Gang with Too Hot.
I remember love's fever in our hearts, girl, and in our minds. Gotta run for shelter, gotta run for shade. It's too hot, lady. Gotta cool this anger, what a mess we made. So long ago, you were my love.
That was Kool and the Gang kicking off our countdown this week with Too Hot, their second single from the platinum album Ladies' Night. Now let's take a look at news stories this month. A jury in Columbus, Ohio finds Larry Flynt and his Hustler magazine guilty of libel and invasion of privacy and awards Penthouse publisher Robert Guccione $39.3 million in damages. In a precedent-setting case, a 20-year-old U.S. soldier is sentenced to 30 days of hard labor for verbal sexual harassment of a female soldier. Washington State's Mount St. Helens is beginning to come alive with belches of gas and explosions followed by a 4.2 magnitude earthquake. It shot volcanic ash 4 miles high, but is it ready to blow? Many area residents are preparing to evacuate while others remain determined to stay. GOP presidential candidate John B. Anderson says President Carter has a mind like a seat cushion, and it bears the imprint of the last person who sat in it. A mine elevator cable snaps, plunging all 23 miners aboard more than a mile to their deaths at the bottom of the world's deepest and largest gold mine not far from Johannesburg, South Africa. In England, some call her Big Spender Annie. Princess Anne, daughter of the Queen, is shown by recent polls to be the most unpopular member of the royal family, and she's being accused of spending too much money. She recently had a new stable built, complete with more animals. Toyota Motor Company passes Chrysler in January to become the third largest seller of cars in the United States, behind GM and Ford. Casablanca Records and Filmworks no longer exist as of this week. The Polygram Group has formed a new movie and television company with Casablanca chairman Peter Gruber. The new company will be called Polygram Pictures. Polygram's takeover of Casablanca began last month when the record division was purchased. First Lady Rosalind Carter flees a hotel in her nightclothes in Wichita, Kansas, after a bank next door catches fire. Secret Service agents called her hotel room about 4 a.m. She later said, "When my secretary opened the door, smoke poured in. I knew then I couldn't get dressed." In a couple of Gallup poll surveys, 63% support President Carter's proposed boycott of the Olympic Games in Moscow this summer. And President Carter continues to hold a wide lead over Ronald Reagan and George Bush. He leads Reagan 57% to 34%. Speaking of Carter, the president tells members of the U.S. Summer Olympic teams they will not go to the Moscow Games and says he hopes to sponsor alternative games. Later, it's announced that the U.S. and 11 other nations will go ahead with plans for a world sports festival for athletes who boycott the Moscow Olympics. Spokesman said the events are not intended as counter-Olympics, will be held after the Moscow Games next July, and will not harm the unitary Olympic movement. A jury in Indiana acquits Ford Motor Company on 3 counts of reckless homicide in the fiery deaths of 3 teenagers when their Pinto sedan explodes in flames when hit from behind. And that's news.
You know trees are America's most important natural resource. So when you plant a tree, you help our country grow. Because trees fight air pollution, noise pollution, and sight pollution. So give a hoot, don't pollute. Plant a tree today.
Help Woodsie spread the word. Tell your friends what you've heard. No matter where you go, you can plant a tree to grow. In the city or in the woods, trees keep America. Trees keep America. Trees keep America looking good.
Because trees are like kids, they're America's future.
Help Woodsie spread the word. Tell your friends what you've heard. In the city or in the woods, trees keep America. Trees keep America.
Please keep America
looking good.
Up next at number 9 is an R&B soul vocal group, which was formed by Soul Train booking agent Dick Griffey and show creator and producer Don Cornelius. Their third album, Big Fun, was released in 1979 and features the group's biggest hit single. Here's Shalimar with The Second Time Around.
I know you come a long way, baby, but you don't need that heart of stone, no. To prove that you can do it, baby. You can make it on your own, but you can't keep running away from love, 'cause the first one let you down, no, no, no. And the others try to satisfy you, baby. With me, your love can still be found. Love can still be found. Second time around. Ooh, the second time is so much better, baby. Second time around. And I make it better than the first time. You know I really love you, and I paid for my mistakes, yes I did, girl. The more I try to hide my feelings, baby, this old heart gets in the way, and I won't let me wait. Second time around, girl, with me it's better than the first time. Second time around, let's do it one more time. Say it again. Second time around, all that I've been through, I'll do it again, just as long.
This will be Shalimar's only top 10 U.S. hit, but the band will remain successful in the UK with their 1982 platinum album Friends and 1983's The Look. Band members returned to the limelight. Singer Jody Watley would find sole success in 1987, and singer Jeffrey Daniel will become a choreographer for Michael Jackson videos and later a judge on the TV show Nigerian Idol. In music news, Italian-American pop crooner Al Martino was fined $300 for stealing $81 worth of shirts and socks from a department store last December. Singer Graham Nash has a new solo album out. Earth and Sky is the title. It was supposed to be a Crosby, Stills and Nash LP, but Nash said, "Things got a little crazy between the three of us. So then Stills was out, and it was going to be a Crosby and Nash album. Then things got a little crazy between the two of us, and I was left with all these songs. There was nothing left for me to do but a solo album, so that's what I did." Cashbox magazine has a special section titled The Second British Invasion. It features an interview with Johnny Rotten and his new band, Public Image Limited. 80-year-old Fred Astaire announces he has plans to marry a female jockey named Robin S. Smith. She's 35. The Bee Gees are being sued in a New York federal court by a composer who claims How Deep Is Your Love by Barry Maurice and Robin Gibb was copied largely from Let It End, a copyrighted composition of Robert Sell. Let's look at the top 5 country hit singles this week. At number 5 is Why Don't You Spend the Night by Ronnie Millsap. I'd Love to Lay You Down by Conway Twitty. Daydream Believer by Anne Murray. Sugar Daddy by the Bellamy Brothers. And this one by Willie Nelson. Here's My Heroes Have Always Been Cowboys.
Old worn out saddles and old worn out memories, but no one and no place to stay. My heroes have always been cowboys, and they still are, it seems, sadly in search of, and one step in back of themselves and their slow-moving dreams. Sadly in search of, and one step in back of themselves and their slow-moving dreams.
Our singer at number 8 this month started off as a session player in the early 1970s and wrote a few songs for one of the bands he occasionally played with called The Buoys. When the band was signed by Scepter Records to a one-single contract, he suggested that they needed something to make them stand out from the crowd. He suggested they record one of his songs, which was most likely to get banned, thus generating publicity for the Buoys. The song was called Timothy, and it told the unnerving story of 3 men trapped in a collapsed mine, 2 of whom resort to cannibalism against the third. Well, the plan worked. The song climbed the U.S. Top 40 chart, peaking at number 17 in April of 1971. That songwriter was Rupert Holmes, and here he is at number 8 in this week's countdown with his second single from his album Partners in Crime. Here's Him.
She forgets to hide them. I know who left those smokes behind. She'll say, oh, he's just a friend. And I'll say, oh, I'm not blind.
It has quickly grown evident that singer Rupert Holmes might have some trust issues. His first top 10 single, Escape, the Pina Colada song, was about a married man meeting a woman from the Personals ad that turned out to be his wife, equally unhappy in the marriage. His latest song, Him, is sung from the point of view of a man who suspects that his woman is cheating on him when he discovers a pack of cigarettes which do not belong to him. He doesn't believe her alibi and tells her that it's me or him. I believe we incorrectly said that Escape, the Pina Colada song, would be the last time we hear from Rupert Holmes in the U.S. Top 10. I apologize, we were wrong, but I assure you, this time is indeed the last time. See you, Rupert. Let's take a look at the world in television. The 6th annual People's Choice Awards were held this month, hosted by Marriott Hartley and Brett Parks. Big winners include Rocky II as favorite motion picture, Alan Alda and Carol Burnett as favorite all-around male and female entertainers, Gary Coleman as favorite young TV performer, and favorite motion picture actor and actress were Burt Reynolds and Jane Fonda. The first regularly scheduled use of closed captioning on American network television occurs on ABC, with captions of spoken dialogue added to programming received through a decoding unit attached to a standard TV set. On the season finale of Dallas on CBS, J.R. Ewing is shot by an unseen assailant, leading to the catchphrase, "Who shot J.R.?" Suzanne Summers, who plays ditzy Chrissy Snow on Three's Company, makes her Las Vegas debut. Check her out at the MGM Grand. She sings, she dances. Actor John Travolta is tired of giving interviews to the press because most of the questions are negative. Hey, why can't they just ask about positive things? Things never come out the way I say them. Travolta says he may never speak to the press again because it isn't going to help my career anyway. ESPN expects to have their channel available to 4 million homes by the end of the month. ESPN says by 1985, an estimated 23 million homes will be capable of receiving the channel. That may give it enough clout to compete with CBS, NBC, and ABC for the bigger sporting events. In other cable news, Turner's WTBS Superstation now reaches 7.3 million homes in 48 states. Moving down one spot from number 6 last month is a singer who spent most of the 70s playing the recorder and harp with a medieval Renaissance music group. Her first single in 1978, Ain't Nothing Gonna Keep Me From You, was written by B.G. Barry Gibb, but it was this song, which was originally recorded by Barbara Mason in 1965, that would give her one-hit wonder status. Here's Terry DeSario, along with high school friend KC with Yes, I'm Ready. Although Terry never saw the Billboard Top 10 for the remainder of her career, don't call her a failure. In the 1980s, she recorded 2 contemporary Christian albums and garnered a Grammy nomination for Best Female Gospel Performance in 1986. In music news, Patti Smith marries former MC5 member Fred Sonic Smith. Easy, don't have to change your name. An auction house in London auctions off a Riviera Hotel napkin signed by Elvis Presley for £500. Other items auctioned include 4 American dollar bills autographed by the Beatles for £220, and a collection of personal letters belonging to the Rolling Stones, also for £220. And record producer Quincy Jones receives a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Let's look at some new records on the store shelves this month. We have Glass Houses by Billy Joel, On Through the Night from Def Leppard, I believe that's their debut, Let's Get Serious by Jermaine Jackson, Dreams by Grace Slick, formerly of Jefferson Starship and Jefferson Airplane, Departure by Journey, Keeping the Summer Alive, the Beach Boys, a little early for March, Rarities by the Beatles, Genesis with Duke, Loverboy's self-titled album, Animal Magnetism by the Scorpions, former Aerosmith guitarist Joe Perry with the Joe Perry Project and Let the Music Do the Talking, and Lost in Love by Air Supply. And then there's this one, the 3rd studio album by this band, has been described by critic Stephen Thomas Erlewine as the record where the group started to get heavier. The band is Van Halen. The album is Women and Children First. And here's a bit of Everybody Wants Some.
Bye.
Now on to number 6. Due to a British folk group called the Spinners, this Detroit R&B vocal group had occasionally been listed as the Motown Spinners or the Detroit Spinners. But looking at the charts, we think the UK group should change their name. These Spinners formed in 1954, and their first single, That's What Girls Are Made For, reached the top 30 in August 1961. This week, their 15th U.S. Top 40 single hits our charts. Here's the Spinners at number 6 with Working My Way Back to You, Forgive Me Girl.
Been paying every day. I used to love to make you cry. It made me feel like a man inside. If I had been a man in reality, you would be here, baby, loving me. Now my nights are long and lonely, and I ain't too proud as I just miss you so. Girl, but you're too proud and won't give in. But when I think about all I could win, I'll keep working my way back to you, babe, with a burning love inside. Well, I'm working my way back to you, babe, and a happiness that died, I let it get away.
That was the Spinners with a medley consisting of Working My Way Back to You, a song originally performed by the Four Seasons in 1966, along with the Forgive Me Girl break written by Michael Zager. It's time for our TV trivia. Can you guess this TV song?
My skin was so dry that I agreed to try Dove for 7 days. Dove really works for me. My skin is softer, less dry.
I used Dove for just 7 days. My skin felt clean without the dryness.
We asked women across America to give up ordinary soap and take the Dove 7-day test.
I just tried Dove for 7 days, and I could really notice the difference.
Dove is 1/4 moisturizing cream.
I can tell because even my makeup goes on better. I should have been using Dove all along.
For softer, smoother skin, try the Dove 7-day test.
Sorry to take you out of the past and into the present, but we have to get a few words in here. You know your support is essential in keeping Pop History Podcast going with the highest possible quality, and we would truly appreciate it if you can take a few seconds of your day today to help us out. If you are broke, like me, you can help us out by leaving an iTunes review, which increases our accessibility. You can interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Your clicks and likes help our visibility on all of our posts. Or just drop us an email at pophistorypodcast@yahoo.com with your favorite 80s memories, a pod distance dedication, or just a few kind words. If you do have a few bucks you'd like to donate to help keep this going, find us on Patreon by doing a search for Pop History Podcast. If we can reach our goal, we'll be providing exclusive content for our Patreon supporters. All these songs can be found in their entirety on Spotify. Do a search for Pop History Podcast playlist, and you'll find playlists for each month of our show. We thank you for listening to Pop History Podcast and look forward to your feedback. Now, back to the show. Have you figured out which TV show went with this theme song? It was recently made into a film starring Dax Shepard, but many critics say it couldn't hold a candle to Eric Estrada and Larry Wilcox in the original NBC show, Chips. The show ran for 6 seasons from 1977 to 1983 and followed the lives of 2 motorcycle police officers of the California Highway Patrol as they solved crimes and found themselves in numerous hijinks. Although they typically share their adventures on the TV screen, the actors who portrayed Ponch and John didn't always get along, and Larry Wilcox, who played John, was bitter over what he saw as favoritism towards Eric Estrada. He did not return for the 6th and final season. Tom Riley, who played the replacement for Wilcox, didn't fare much better. He was arrested in Los Angeles for possession of controlled substances during a traffic stop and was featured less prominently in the later episodes. Larry Wilcox will return with Eric Estrada in the 1998 made-for-TV movie Chips 99. Moving up from last month, it's the Queen of Disco, Donna Summer, with her 10th Top 10 hit. From the Jodie Foster film Foxes, here's Donna Summer's On the Radio. That was Donna Summer with On the Radio, a song which was also the title track for her compilation album On the Radio, Greatest Hits Volumes 1 and 2. There were several versions of this song upon its release, including a single version and a longer album version, as well as an instrumental and a ballad tempo, and another version of that, this one with Summer's vocal. And even more variations would come in the following years. Cover versions by artists as vast as country singer Emmylou Harris, Tejano superstar Selena, and punk supergroup Me First and the Gimme Gimmes. Now let's take a look at who came and went in March of 1980. Looking at the births, we have actresses Rebel Wilson, Laura Prepon of That 70s Show and Orange is the New Black, Catherine Waterston, she was last seen in Alien Covenant, and Molly Stanton. Actors Matthew Gray Goulet and Mikey Day, and musicians Derek Whibley of Sum 41 and Joe King of The Fray. On the other side, people who passed this month, on March 5th, Jay Silverheels died at the age of 67 after complications of a stroke. Silverheels is best known as Tonto on over 200 episodes of the Lone Ranger TV series, as well as numerous related movie and television appearances. Frank McDonald passed away at the age of 80. He directed more than 100 films, including many westerns starring Gene Autry and Roy Rogers. Vocalist of the 40s and 50s, Dick Haymes, succumbed to lung cancer at the age of 61. Singer Jessica Dragonette died at the age of 80 of a heart attack. And at the age of 66, Jesse Owens, recognized in his lifetime as perhaps the greatest and most famous athlete in track and field history. His achievement of setting 3 world records and tying another in less than an hour at the 1935 Big Ten track meet in Ann Arbor, Michigan, have been called the greatest 45 minutes ever in sports. At the 1936 Summer Olympics in Berlin, Owens won 4 gold medals, the most successful athlete at the Games, and as a black man was credited with single-handedly crushing Adolf Hitler's myth of Aryan supremacy. Owens was later ranked by ESPN as the 6th greatest North American athlete of the 20th century and was highest ranked in his sport. At the time of his death, Owens was a pack-a-day smoker for 35 years and had been hospitalized with an aggressive form of cancer. He died on March 31st, 1980. Guess he couldn't run that fast those last few years. Now let's take a look at the top rock records of the month as listed by Rolling Stone magazine in their March 20th, 1980 issue. At number 10, Fleetwood Mac with Tusk. At number 9, we got Kenny Loggins, Keep the Fire. Number 8, we just heard her, Donna Summer with On the Radio, Greatest Hits 1 and 2. Number 7, Styx with their new album Cornerstone. Number 6, Rush with Permanent Waves. Number 5 is the Eagles with The Long Run. Number 4 is Michael Jackson's hit album Off the Wall. At number 3, Dan Fogelberg with Phoenix. Number 2, we have Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Damn Their Torpedoes. And at number 1 this week on the Rolling Stone Rock Album Chart is Pink Floyd with The Wall. Let's hear a little bit of that Styx. Here's Little Styx with one of their songs from their Cornerstone album. Here's a little Love in the Midnight. That was Love in the Midnight by Styx, the closing song off their Cornerstone album. Moving up from number 10 last month, here's the little brother of the Bee Gees, Andy Gibb, with Desire.
Together we can learn to grow in a world that's ever turning. If it's back on you, if you give it all away, make it out. You are desire, anything you need, I give you right or wrong. And you are the one that I place on.
Andy Gibb's After Dark would be his final studio album, and Desire, his last top 10 single. Gibb's cocaine addiction caused problems with his record company, his role on syndicated television's Solid Gold, and even within the Gibb family. His family convinced him to seek treatment at the Betty Ford Center in the mid-1980s, and in early 1987, Gibb was reportedly sober and ready to record a new album and regain his star status. Shortly after his 30th birthday in March of 1988, Gibb checked into an Oxford hospital complaining of chest pains. While tests were being done, Gibb slumped into unconsciousness on March 10th and died shortly after as a result of myocarditis, an inflammation of the heart muscle caused by a recent viral infection, which was exacerbated by his years of cocaine abuse. Shows which debuted on the small screen this month include the variety show Pink Lady on NBC, That's Incredible, a reality show of its time on ABC, Beyond Westworld on CBS, Beau Bridges in United States, Red Fox returns to the junkyard in the sequel to Sanford & Son, this time no son, in NBC's Sanford. There's Me and Max on NBC. After starring in McHale's Navy and the Carol Burnett Show, Tim Conway tries again with The Tim Conway Show on CBS. The Stockard Channing Show debuts on CBS Monday nights. And Polly Holiday gets out of the diner and out on her own in the spin-off to Alice called Flow. Ending this month is the TBS Japanese animated show The Ultraman, canceled after 50 episodes, aired through the syndicated affiliate. Maybe you tuned into this show back then.
There's a magic in the early morning we found, when the sunrise smiles on everything around. It's a portrait of the happiness that we feel and always will. Oh, it is enough to fill our lives with love.
Oh, we spend our days like bright and shiny new dimes. If we're ever puzzled by the changing times, there's a plate of homemade wishes on the kitchen windowsill, and 8 is enough to fill our lives with love.
8 is Enough ran on ABC from 1977 until 1981 and starred Dick Van Patten as a widowed newspaper columnist supporting 8 children. The show was loosely based on the autobiographical book of the same name by syndicated newspaper columnist himself, Thomas Brandon. Fun fact about this show, Luke Skywalker himself, Mark Hamill, portrayed the oldest son, David Bradford, in the pilot episode, which aired 2 months before the first Star Wars film. The show would later feature up-and-coming actors Grant Goodeve, Willie Ames, and Ralph Macchio. The show would have 2 reunion TV specials, an 8 is Enough reunion in 1987, and an 8 is Enough wedding in 1989. At number 3 is a progressive rock band who achieved stardom without the need for a single to hit the charts. Founded in 1965, this band went through several names including Sigma 6, the Megadeths, the T-Set, and the Pink Floyd Sound. Their second single, See Emily Play, would hit the UK Top 10, but it wouldn't be until 1973's Money where Pink Floyd would reach the U.S. charts at all, hitting number 13. Without many singles or a top 10 hit, Pink Floyd would become one of the biggest rock bands of the 1970s, and they were looking to make their 11th studio album something special. During the previous tour, bass guitarist and lyricist Roger Waters conceived of the idea of a rock opera which tells the fictional story of a character named Pink and his battle with abandonment and isolation, leading the character to build a metaphoric wall around him. Debuting this month at number 3, here's Pink Floyd with Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2. This song in its present form almost didn't happen. Roger Waters originally wrote the track to be much shorter and simpler, only being 1 verse and 1 chorus. But producer Bob Ezrin recognized the hit potential to the song and encouraged the band to extend the song and add in the children's choir. Waters was dead set against this idea, saying, "You're not bloody getting them. We don't do singles." But once Ezrin set up the North London Children's Choir and they began to sing, Ezrin could see in Waters' face that he had come around. New films in the theaters this month include a theatrical re-release of the 1955 Disney classic Lady and the Tramp, Defiance, an early Jerry Bruckheimer production starring Jan Michael Vincent and Art Carney, the cult film Forbidden Zone, directed by Richard Elfman and starring Fancy Island star Hervé Villechaize, Martin Mull and Tuesday Weld starred in the comedy Serial, Little Miss Marker starring Walter Matthau, Tony Curtis, Julie Andrews, and Bob Newhart was a remake of the 1934 film of the same name. Just as the National Enquirer had revealed that actor Steve McQueen had terminal cancer, his second-to-last film, the Western Tom Horn, was released. And riding the coattails of the popular disaster films that were released throughout the 1970s, When Time Ran Out hits theaters. The film, about a volcanic eruption, starred Paul Newman, Jacqueline Bisset, and William Holden. The film was a commercial flop and is often regarded as the final 1970s disaster film. And finally, the most popular film this month is this one.
She was married at 13. She had 4 kids by the time she was 20. She's been hungry and poor. She's been loved and cheated on. She became a singer because it was the only thing she could do. She became a star because it was the only way she could do it.
If it's gonna break us up, I'll quit.
Successful people don't quit, baby. Sissy Spacek, Tommy Lee Jones, coal miner's daughter, rated PG. Now playing at a theater near you.
Sissy Spacek played country singer Loretta Lynn in this biographical film, which was adapted from Lynn's 1976 book. Spacek said she was unsure she should take the role when it was first offered, and she couldn't decide to take the role or a Nicholas Roeg project that was about to start filming. Spacek was advised by her mother-in-law to pray for a sign, which she did. Shortly after, her and her husband went for a drive, and as soon as they turned the car, the song Coal Miner's Daughter was playing on the radio. Taking that as a sign if there ever was one, Spacek signed on to the role. It was her first major starring role since 1976 Carrie, and it also starred Tommy Lee Jones as Lynn's husband and Beverly D'Angelo as fellow singer Patsy Cline. It would hit number 1 on the adult contemporary charts, but only peak at number 2 on the Billboard singles. From his 5th album, Phoenix, here's Dan Fogelberg with Longer.
Longer than there have been fishes in the ocean, higher than any bird ever flew, longer than there have been stars up in the heavens. I've been in love with you. Stronger than any mountain cathedral, truer than any tree ever grew, deeper than any forest primeval. I am in love with you.
That was Dan Fogelberg with his first top 20 hit, Longer, a song which Fogelberg admitted was loosely based on the Beatles song Here, There, and Everywhere. Let's listen to a little bit of that and see if we can hear it. Now it's time for us to look back at one song that surprisingly never made it to the top 10. A song that is well remembered today, but wasn't quite as appreciated back then. It's our song that should've, but didn't. This month's song that should've, but didn't is by a band fronted by a high school dropout from Gainesville, Florida. That after this.
It's the smiling, shining feeling, the light of a brand new day. And you're the Pepsi generation, you're the spirit of today. There's a feeling deep inside you, a spirit you just can't hide. And with every taste of life that's new, well, that Pepsi spirit shines right through. Catch that Pepsi spirit, drink it in, drink it in, drink it in. Catch that Pepsi spirit, drink it in, drink it in, drink it in. It's the love and the laughter, the taste of life the world is after. Catch that Pepsi spirit, drink it in, drink it in, drink it in.
Our song that should've but didn't is by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. With the release of their 3rd album, Damn the Torpedoes, their first single, Don't Do Me Like That, reached the top 10. Their 2nd single, Refugee, should have kept climbing, but never quite made it. Peaking at number 15 in March 1980, here's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers with Refugee.
We get stuff we both know and we don't talk too much about it. Ain't no real big secret, all the same, somehow we get around it. You don't really matter to me, baby. You believe what you want, but it is love. Feel like a refugee.
was this week's Song That Shoulda But Didn't, Refugee by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, a song that was covered by Melissa Etheridge in 2005 for her Greatest Hits album, and has also been covered by Veins of Jenna, the Gaslight Anthem, and Alvin and the Chipmunks, and remains popular to this day as this month's single that should've but didn't. Now, I know what you're thinking. He isn't actually going to tell us about an Alvin and the Chipmunks cover version, not play it, is he? Of course not. Here's a snippet. That's all you get. It's pretty horrible. Look it up on YouTube if you want to hear more of it. At number 1 this month is an English band in which the lead singer was born Farouk Bolsara in Zanzibar. When he joined the band Smile in 1970, he suggested they change their name to Queen, and he changed his surname to Mercury, inspired by the line, Mother Mercury, look what they done to me, in their song, My Fairy King. The number 1 song of March 1980 is Queen with Crazy Little Thing Called Love. That was Queen with the first single from their 8th album, The Game. Crazy Little Thing Called Love also topped the singles charts in Australia, Canada, Mexico, and the Netherlands. Thanks for listening. Tune in next time we look at April 1980. And remember, life is short. Be nice to each other.
Thanks for listening to Pop History Podcast. Please leave us a review on iTunes, like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or email us at pophistorypodcast@yahoo.com. Your host and producer is Jay Jackson. Theme music by Jason Parkhurst. All other music used herein is the property of their respective songwriters, publishers, and recording companies, and are used within this podcast for historical educational purposes. Pop History Podcast is copyright 2017.